Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the most flexible and the most changeable issues that happened in the global world. It's actually the issue of the employability or the issue of the global market. And we're going to talk today a little bit about the changes that are happening right now in the global market and actually in the global skills that are required to this global market, because you know that in many industries and in many most demand occupations or specialities or concentrations that are happening today, they didn't exist in the last 10 or even 5 years ago. And these changes are still the method of the acceleration. And by the one popular estimates, more than 65% of children that are now studying in school, they will ultimately end up working in the complete new job types that even don't exist right now. We will talk a little bit what barriers are happening to the decent work and what is a decent workplace. We'll definitely talk about the unemployment and its effects on the economy, on the politics, and on the society it causes, and also about the strategies that policymakers can take to limit unemployment. But I would like to start with the general overview, as usually, and while talking about how much we work and what for we work, I can estimate that in the recent years, we have the dramatic cool down in the number of the works that in the number of the hours that they actually spend for a work. It's happening in the different societies, both in the developed countries and in the developing countries. The only difference is that sometimes in the developing countries who are passing the industrialization part of the story, so they can have the increase in the numbers of the working, but it's not huge. So like here you can see the Bangladesh, but in the majority of cases we are spending less time on the classical work, while asking a question what is happening at the effects on economy, we can estimate that the production is growing. So we managed to build such types of works and such types of automatization or technologization of work that actually help us to produce more goods or services by spending less time. And this is definitely one of the most positive phenomena. So you can see here that take into account the correlation between average annual working hours and GDP per capita. The most developed countries are on the top, on the bottom right. This simply means that we are spending less time working, but producing the economic effects that are much more better than, for example, comparing with the developing countries. They're situated on the left top, that they're spending too much time for work, but unfortunately they don't see the feasible economical effects of this work. What is also interesting that one of the major changes is happening according to the International Labour Organization report of 2019, is happening with the part-time job. And we see also the effects of changes of employment that is coming recently, and not only because of crises or coronavirus, but because of the nature of the present work. So here you can see on the chart that in recent years, labor markets, both in advanced and in the developing economies, have witnessed this movement away from the standardized week with a fixed number of hours towards the flexible working time. And you can see that the share the part-time workers increased dramatically from 2006 and 2017 in the majority of countries, both in the developed and in the developing. So please see, for example, Estonia, Austria, or Hungary, and the dramatic shifts in the lifestyle of work. And however, it's also happening in the developing economies. They also introduced the part-time employment schemes, and please notice like South Africa or Ecuador, for example. And what is interesting that this part-time employment is not necessarily a negative phenomena, because it helps to achieve a favorable work-life balance. Nevertheless, it's very important to see either this part-time is voluntary or involuntary, because sometimes when it is involuntary, it also can have the negative implications in terms of the social stability and in terms of the social protection. So recently, the International Labour Organization, they are considering that after the COVID times, we will have the more part-time jobs, and it became a very natural things. But once more, we should weigh the implications of the part-time with both in the short run, that also sometimes means, especially in the developing countries, lower earnings comparing to the classical job, but also in the long term. And it's connected with the lower social security contributions. So what changes in job markets we can see right now? So World Economic Forum started a series of different researches and publications in terms of the changes in the job market. And at first, in 2015, they considered a new path of changes that will happen until 2020. And now we can measure actually what we have achieved. But despite these achievements, what is interesting that they definitely consider the changing nature of work, more flexible work, and that is what actually happened right now, more middle class in emerging markets, also the impact of the climate changes, natural resources, also the importance of the privacy issues and the geopolitical volatility that also can cause changes in the work, and the women, for example, economic power aspirations, and more young demographics that is coming to the markets, especially to the emerging markets, and also the influence of the education and an influence of the rapid urbanization that is coming and causing the changes. But together with this demographic and socio-economic changes, they also prognosed the technological and the big technological impact, mainly about that is connected with the sharing of the internet technologies, Internet of Things, new supplies to technologies, new ways of how you rank with technologies your jobs. So in 2015, they considered the World Economic Forum that this will be the most influential changes, reasons for a change. And actually, to some part, that's true. That's what have happened, because we can see the changes of the new roles or the new professions that are coming because of this social, technological, and demographical changes. And we also see the rapid decrease of the jobs, of professions that are still, for example, in the emerging economies or in the developing economies, they're not necessary for the job market that we have right now. So here you can compare that in the major of cases, the stable roles or the stable jobs, professions, they still be present. However, closer to the 2022 and then later to 2025, we will see the increase of new vacancies and the new job titles that are not existing right now, and this is fantastic. And if in 2015, so they also tried to understand what will be new and what will be present on the marketplace. And you can see that the majority of jobs, so they have, in terms of the skills, they have positive outlooks and skills disturbed. So that simply means that the new skills will be required to the such types of like basics and infrastructure, or mobility, or financial services, or for example, information communication technology will be pretty the same. It simply means that the new skills will be required for these jobs. Well, for example, for the healthcare is still the same. So, and they also predicted that the new skills should be developed, like in terms of energy, media, and entertainment, and so on and so forth. So this was the major prediction. And they also predicted that the reasons of that there will be such important requirements that are connected with the rise of the machines, for example, systems here, or with the extreme longevity of the human race. So that this simply means that we should involve more elders into the production. New media ecology and the global connectivity of the world. Then we see technologization of computational world, and also the superstructured organizations, more complicated organizational styles. And all this requires like the set of the skills they actually emerged. And if we study the professions that are occurring right now, we can see that to the major extent, the importance of the media literacy is actually growing. The importance of the virtual collaboration is actually growing. So to the major extent, the predictions were pretty okay. But in 2020, they released a new set of the predictions to the world of 2025. And in this report, World Economic Forums focused mainly on the technological shifts that becoming so influential that it was really hard to predict them in 2018. So 2 years from 2018 until 2020, but so dramatic shifts. For example, in 2018, you can see that the cloud computing, for example, was underestimated, but it became one of the most important according to the present landscape changing. Then big data analytics was predicted pretty okay. But for example, encryption and cybersecurity, it was underestimated in 2018, but nowadays we can see that this is one of the most influential technological issues that are happening right now. But for example, the new materials like different nanotubes were overestimated. We can see that jobs are not requiring right now these issues, or like the quantum computing. So the major dramatic shifts are in encryption, cybersecurity, happening in cloud computing, and also happening here in this 3D printing, or for example, in these robots that are used for the work. So if you're choosing what actually the impact you can do, what are the spheres that you should try to concentrate. So here you can take this path. And that simply means that more and more technologists are involved in the work, and this is what dramatically is different from the previous years. So a lot of scientists are talking about the fourth industrial revolution, that is more technological revolution, when we have lesser the great complexes and machinery that is done here, but we came to the digitalized industrial production that is scaling to the different low demand, let's say, in terms of the physical work, but more intellectual production, especially in the developed countries. So here you can see also that some rapid changes, for example, in the information and data processing, that more and more machines will be taking this job, and humans will not be present. So they will be present, but the influence will not be so much, especially comparing the years of 2020 and 2025. Then, for example, the coordinating, managing, and advising, you also see the increase of the machinery that will be present, and even in such fields that required manual work activities, once more robots, according to the World Economic Forums, will be present, that will actually kill the need of people presentees in the working cycle. So the huge impact of the technologies and on the machines and robotization will be happening in the next few years, and that will create actually the changes in the job market. That will create the changes in the professions. So there will be more increased demand, according to the World Economic Forum 2020, in data analysis and scientists, in the artificial intelligence and machine learning specialist, big data specialist, digital marketing, and later you can see here, I will not mention all of them. While there will be also decrease in the demand for data entry clerks. That simply means that the robotization of the process, or automatization, let's say better, of the process will kill the need for the people like to enter data. So they will be entered because of the process. Then administrative and executive secretaries, with all the numbers of applications and plannings, indeed, this is a true thing. Then accounting, bookkeeping, payroll clerks, accountants, and auditors. So that will be the decrease in demand. So if you're thinking about this sphere, you'd better concentrate on the left table. And this definitely means that we will see the changes, not only in the jobs, but we will see changes in the skills that are needed for these jobs. So what are the most recent predictions? What we'll see the increase? Definitely with the automatization of the process, nevertheless, human is still present. And you probably recalled the TEDx video, and you see that actually automatization helps a lot, but it creates a number of the other jobs that could be present on the market for humans, but the requirements of these jobs will be totally different. So the relative importance of the skills that employees are mentioning right now is actually the critical thinking and analysis that will be only increasing up to the 2025. Then problem solving skills, self-management, working with people. Then you can see the little decrease of the core literacies, and especially with the physical abilities. And probably the COVID times showed a lot that that's quite true, because the issues of the problem solving or self-management, people can build their job working distantly and do the same production, even not sitting in the offices, sitting somewhere outside of the natural cycles of the services or of the production. Is what's happening, and according to the World Economic Forums, the changes just will be growing and increasing. And here you can see their prediction for the top 15 skills of 2025 that you should practice. First, it's analytical thinking and innovation, then active learning and learning strategies, because a lot of changes requires not knowledge, but skills to learn, and the skills to be really flexible with the learning, let's say, atmosphere. Then complex problem solving, number 3, critical thinking and analysis, number 4, creativity, originality, and different initiatives, number 5, and only number 6, like social things are coming, like leadership or social influence. And we are overestimated to the major idea of the technology use. It will be more and more individualized, it will be more and more present. However, only number 7 and 8, like exactly technology design and programming, but it's still present. So these top 15 skills that are needed for 2025, and to have a good job, and to have a job actually, not to compete with robots, we need to practice here. And here what is interesting, that according to the QS Global Skills Gap, indeed there is such gap. So such gap is created between the important of the skills in the viewpoint of the employers, and also the satisfaction of the recent skills that are present by the people who are employed. Especially this QS Global Skills is connected with the credits of the university. So you simply can see that in some terms, students or graduates are overestimating some skills or underestimating others, while, for example, employers thinking about the importance of the other issues. Here you can see that for the importance score, like problem solving, teamwork, communication, adaptivity, interpersonal skills, data analysis, then resilience, for example, are really important for the present employees, while, for example, people are not satisfied. So employers are not satisfied generally in the world with the problem solving, because only 67 out of 96, or like teamwork, it's much more better, communication. But for example, resilience or organization, self-management that we talk, is really a problem. And comparing with the different regions, actually you can see that that while in the Western Europe or Northern America, in the majority of cases, the situation of the satisfaction is pretty okay. But in the developing countries, in the developed economies of Asia, for example, Pacific or Latin America, you can see what is a big gap, tremendous gap between the level of the satisfactions of employers and and their understanding of the skills importance. So it's showing actually that in the number of cases, the graduates of the schools, so they are actually overestimating or underestimating their abilities to fit. And you can see the difference, the exact difference between the student ranks and employers rank, what is necessary, what should you have to enter the market. So you can see, for example, that there was a survey in 2018, and if I'm not mistaken, 28,000 of students were participating in that. So graduate students, I mean. So, and they mentioned like the creativity is important, so, and put it number one of the first. Well, no, the creativity employees only ranked number 9, and there is 8 difference. You can also see the big difference in terms of the data analysis. It will be growing, yes, but not for the old professions. So you can also see the difference. And what is interesting here, that like the problem solving was the most important according to the employers rank, but students, graduates only mention it as a number third. So indeed, there is a gap in the understanding of skills, and comparing with the changing of markets and the new skills requirements, many graduates should be very accurate in the building of their skills ability. Why it is important? Because simply it can cause some barriers to the decent work, and by the decent work we usually understand like the normal work that can help us to achieve the good salaries, good wages, and to produce some also some goods or do some services. So what are the most important barriers that are happening? So one we mentioned, this definitely are skills. So but we should remember that there are several barriers. So there are structural barriers that prevent individuals to have this access, the decent work. So, and they can be caused, for example, from a lack or either lack of opportunities or capabilities on very individual level. So this is lack of education, or once more lack of skills, or for example, very low, very insufficient working experience. And this actually can influence individuals' decision to participate at all in the labor market. And also it can cause skilled, for example, skilled workers that have the necessary skills, but they can cause their interest in changing the job opportunities, and later it can cause the inadequate equilibrium on the market that definitely can cause the unemployment. This is one of the direct effect. We'll later talk about the unemployment. And moreover, not knowing about the jobs, what is needed, it also can limit the labor mobility, make people stay in their regions, in their cities, even without the work, and it can be cause many of the social problems and social tensions. While there are also present the structural barriers for the labor market. And these barriers act not only on the individual level, but rather on the structural level. So they can involve general distortions, let's say, of the labor market, and they also can affect the massive number of workers and groups on the same time on different countries in different economies. So you can see that one of the most prominent such barriers nowadays is existing, let's say, of the dualistic economic structures that create both insectoral and even some spatial inequities in the terms of the availability of this decent work. And indeed, many countries continue to have the large traditional sector that is present alongside with the much more modern, developed, but rather small industrial sector. And that is usually located in the urban areas. So in those countries, when you have the great percentage of the rural areas, citizens living, so this could be real dramatic. And indeed, that's true that the most dynamic sectors are usually concentrated in the urban areas, and that can create these inequalities in terms of the accessibility of the industries, accessibility of the demands. But also you can see that sometimes even labor demand shocks can also be a barrier, especially the economic crisis when there is a recession in the country, and usually we see the dramatic fall of the of the vacancies that are available. Then new technologies are also present that can limit people participation, and many other issues like even the seasonal activities that usually in the summer more skills with farming could be available, but not in the winter. That is very they're not so critical, let's say, for the developed economies, but still, once more, for the developing economies, they could be real critical one. And here, it is important to see that all these barriers that are affecting individuals, that are affecting the labor market, and some shocks, some unexpected events, they have the influence on the such issues as a labor supply, so the quantity of people that are present freely on the market, labor demands, so the number of vacancies that are happening, also the labor intermediation, and the quality of the employment. So this is the most critical issues that the policymakers should think about, how they can build the system that actually do some here the drivers of change, yes, to help the situation to be pretty stable. And why it is important, because in terms of the policy making, and why job markets are part of the policy making system, because it's really interconnected with the way how we produce and educate people. So once more, you see a number of different important interconnections between the global issues. So that is why this is a very complex phenomena. And here, according to the International Labour Organizations, you can see the recent changes for 18 years, starting from 2000s until 2018, in the number of the skilled professions. So in the major of cases, you can see that markets are requiring medium skilled workers and higher skilled workers, especially the higher skilled workers that are brown here, yes, and there is the major increase in the different countries. While, for example, low-skilled workers, you see the major decrease. So this is actually the matter of the education, like to bring like these green people towards the blue or brown people. And overall in the world, you see the decrease of the qualifications, number of vacancies for the low-skilled worker was almost like 7 or 8%, while the increase, the need of the high-skilled workers or the medium skill was up to 5%. And this is happening once more in the number of the industries. Pay attention here on the North America, or for example, on the Western Europe, when even for the low skills, there is very slight increase, but the decrease in the medium skilled workers. So, but once more, the rapid increase of the high skills. So this simply means that overall, the overall temperature is over the world, that world and industry are demanding high professionals. And this is a challenge to the educational system, to the professional system of education, because if people doesn't fit that logic, if people are not educated enough, if people are not trained enough to be present here, that definitely can affect unemployment. So unemployment. But is a very serious economic and social and political issue that is really connected with the job market. Why? Because simply because of the cost. And we definitely know with the high level of unemployment, you can simply kill your country, make it real fragile, and make your country like a failed state. So usually unemployed people, so we understand unemployed people as the people that are about of the working age, so 15 or 16 years old, that are not being paid in the paid employment or self-employed but currently are available for work. So the only difference here that we should take in consideration that until the according to the UN, so these are the youth people. So this is youth, and youth is until the 24 years old, and the majority of these people are still in the field of education. So in the number of contexts, they are excluded. So those who don't have education, so who are not in this higher education, they are excluded from the unemployed people calculations, while those who are not in the higher education process, they are included here. So this is, let's say, they're available for work, they're available for employability, but they're not either self-employed or employed in the companies. And usually we understand unemployment and measure unemployment rate as a number of the unemployed people as a percentage of the total labor force. That is very easy. So in terms of the causes of unemployment, we mentioned some of them, like new technologies, they can cause more robots will steal our job, but also such issues as economic recession, then global competition that is caused by the international trade. That is good phenomena, but some of the effects could be bad if the countries are not prepared for that. And also globalization, the same story. That there is no direct reasoning that the international trade or globalization is still in work, but nevertheless, it can cause some of such effects in the unemployment. Then it could be policies of the government, but it also could be market competitions or state regulations, and it can cause what is called the natural unemployment. So here in the chart, you can see the overall temperature in the world. You can see that in the majority of countries, there is no zero level of unemployment. On Greenland only has this, but that definitely mean to the certain extent, unemployment is very natural for the societies and very natural for the economies, and many economists believe that there is nothing bad with that. However, the problem is when the unemployment level is pretty high. And here you can see, especially in Africa and recently even in Europe, in Balkan states, that the level of the unemployment, and especially youth unemployment, is dramatically high. And this is a problem. And we will see what kind of problem it is. So here you can see also the chart from the OECD that is showing how many problems can different crises cause to the employability of people. So here you see the financial crisis and increased breakdown in the level of the percentage of the labor force that is present, at least in the OECD countries. And by this point, it's actually mean the 80, so here the 85%. And this was the recent situation with the outbreak of the COVID that also caused the tremendous unemployment, especially in the services. And the services that is happening because of the lockdown and the inability of the small companies of small services, let's say tourism, then the industry of the food of restaurants to create this, so the hospitality industries to actually to create such new jobs. So there are different types of the unemployment, and there are different theories of the unemployment. And the most simplistic way is to understand unemployment either like voluntary or involuntary. People want this, make such decision, or simply not. So the voluntary unemployment is usually attributed to the individual decision making, while involuntary is a direct cause of the socioeconomic conditions or environment, and is deeply connected with these structural barriers that are present and preventing people to have the access to the jobs. So in this understanding these terms, much or most of the so-called frictional unemployment is voluntary, since that reflects behavior. And in terms of the frictional unemployment, this is unemployment because people want simply to change the job. They're looking for something else. And the voluntary unemployment includes usually such workers who reject low-wage jobs, but involuntary unemployment, they usually includes workers that are fired because of the crisis in economy, because of the industrial decline, because of the bankruptcy, or for example, restructuring of the economic sectors when some of the former traditional, for example, sectors are not needed anymore because the big companies are coming and created more manufactured advanced level. On the other way, we can think about the unemployment that includes these types of the unemployment. And so here, the classical unemployment or real wage unemployment, it usually occurs when the real wages for jobs are set about so-called market clearing level, and causing actually the number of the job seekers to exceed the vacancies. So in other terms, people compete for a job, and the level of skills should increase, but some of the people that they don't have the necessary skills, so they simply can't have this job. And this classical or the real wage unemployment is, to some extent, it is good. So unemployment is not necessarily bad. And it depends on the countries, but in many of the societies, economists believed that up to the 8% or 7%, it really depends. Unemployment, this is good unemployment, because this simply means that people don't require necessary skills to enter jobs. So there is a possibility for them to have more competition, to educate themselves, and then to compete with people who are present on the market. So sometimes this is called the natural rate of unemployment. And this natural rate of unemployment could be defined as the rate of the unemployment that exists in the labor market of equilibrium. And there is not pressure, neither rising inflation nor falling inflation rates. So people, very classical, very neutral. So people don't have jobs, not because of the fiscal reasons, but simply in terms of the skills inadequacy. Cyclical or Keynesian, sometimes they call it, or deficit demand unemployment occurs when there is not aggregate demand in the economy to provide new jobs for everyone who wants these jobs. So demand of more goods and services falls, and so there is less production, and so there is no need for the tremendous increase of the workers. So to some extent, once more market come to the equilibrium level, and here there is why you can see this unemployment results. Just because we don't see in the macroeconomy of the country, so we don't see the need for the new jobs to be present. It is, its name is derived actually from the frequent ups and downs in the very natural business cycle, and but also the unemployment, such type of unemployment can be persistent, for example, as during Great Depression. when the markets run, they created new jobs, and they were overfull with people. So this is what we call the Keynesian or the cyclical unemployment. So the structural unemployment, this type occurs when a labor market is unable to provide jobs for everyone who wants it, because there is, let's say, mismatch between the skills of the unemployed workers and the skills that are needed for available jobs. So here the difference is that jobs are available, vacancies are available, but people are not ready to come to them because of their skills. So the structural unemployment can also be encouraged to rise the existing cyclical employment. And this is a trouble, because if economy suffers long-lasting, let's say, low aggregating demand, that simply means that many of the people who are unemployed, they become unskillful. Including they become unskillful in their job searching skills. And that simply means that they will not find vacancies that will be created by the new economic development. And that simply means that this is a trouble, because the country should spend, and the government should spend, additional costs to qualify these people, to train these people. Otherwise, they will not find work by themselves. So the frictional unemployment is probably the time period between different jobs when the people are and the workers are searching some job vacancies for a transition from one job to another. And this is also, this type is sometimes you can find in the literature that is called the search unemployment. And it could be voluntary, just because we need like the new job, we are tired of this job, or we do believe that we take the new education, that we adopted new skills, and that is why we can search for the mostly better jobs. So, but it also be actually the cause of this involuntary or the structural unemployment, when once more, when the markets or industries are closed and people need to search for something new. But usually such mismatch of the frictional unemployment is related to the part-time job, is related to the locations, to the seasonal industries, and to the other kinds of jobs. It also can be caused, for example, by the graduates of the universities that need some time to find a job, to start a job, or for example, the period when they have the first working experience, and then they need time to catch the other jobs that they would like. And the most dramatic to the decision making is actually the hidden unemployment or not covered employment, and this is very statistical issue. So this is an unemployment of the potential workers that are not reflected in the official unemployment statistics, because the way of how this statistic is collected. And this is usually a trouble, because you can't include them into the official decision-making process. So, and you can create a policies not take into account, like it could be a huge percentage of people that are not seen. Because in many countries, on those employees or people who are seen, who have no work, but are actively searching for work and can qualify to some of the social security benefits, are counted as unemployed. And if we don't see them, that simply means that we can't construct a good process of them to be engaged into the economy, and that simply means that the economy could be lacking of the vacancies. Beside that, we can also point it like the 2 or even 3 types that are connected with a special group of people who could be unemployed, like youth, like female, and elders. So youth unemployment, according to the UN, is one of the very critical problems in terms of the present job markets. And in many countries, we can see the growth of the unemployment, especially this is worldwide, but also this is happening both in the developed countries and also happening in the developing countries. And the youth unemployment is caused by the number of factors, not only skills or absentees of the previous previous working experience, but also because of the structural changes when the universities in the number of societies are not preparing skills that are good for the newly established markets that or jobs they have never existed before. So overall, what we have right now, so there is around 1.2 billion of the youth population in the world, and you can see that around 700 million of people are excluded from the labor force because they're in the higher education, as I told. So around 400 million of people are employed, but you can also see that near 68 million of people were unemployed in 2019, and 41% was potential labor force. So, but they simply didn't find the jobs. And if this is a structure of the youth unemployment overall in different countries, you can see that in the majority of cases, this is informal unemployment, part-time or informal unemployment, and this percentage is really huge. So the classical, so youth is competing with the elders for the formal traditional vacancies and markets. And you also can see that in the majority of cases when people are employed, youth are employed, these are salaried workers. For example, only 20% they create a job for themselves, and 26% are actually working for their families. In the 2000, this is a chart for 2016. You can see the overall temperature of the world. So there is a big problem in Europe. So in developed countries, the same trouble in the developing countries of Africa, Middle East, or Latin America, or even Asia. So where there is a this big issue with the youth unemployment, and this is very dramatic because if you take the demography and the number of the elders that is growing, we can see that without the employability, the state system will pay a lot and to keep the elders, while there is no fresh blood that could be put into the economy. So the gender and unemployment is another big issue. So in the most countries, the unemployment rate for women is much more higher than the unemployment rate for men. But the difference in the unemployment rates really depends on the overall unemployment rate in the country. So here you can see that in the majority of cases, the unemployment rate for women is happening in the mostly traditionalized societies. Even in Europe, Balkans, you can see the huge rate of the unemployment, and even in the Middle East or Africa, when there are more traditional based societies. But here in the chart, you can see that on the left hand of the chart, you can see that the most countries like close to the diagonal line of the marking of the gender parity, and that simply means that in the countries where there is generally low unemployed rates, the gender difference in the unemployment is not so huge, it's not so big. However, on this right hand side of the chart, mostly countries with lie significantly about this diagonal line. So in such countries where unemployment rate is more common, women tend to be to have this disproportion of the unemployment. And it's definitely, you can see that the mostly developed countries that are here in the 5%, and they are exactly on the line. However, there is also an important in terms of the female unemployment, that the countries with a very low female labor force participation tend also to have the big female unemployment. And this is dramatic, not because of the feminist approach, but because of the women participation, because there could be different reasons of the female unemployment, and the major of them are definitely the traditional role in the many of societies, then the majority of time that is spent for the child care, and this is unpaid, and then the maternal health issues that could occur, and many other issues. And the major trick is here that it is involuntary, so that simply means that women are excluded from the power of the country of producing some goods and services, and it simply means that we have this disproportion of the production. And here in the chart, you can see the female employment to the population ratio, and you can see that mostly the developed countries, there is a greater level of the employment when there is some state support. So usually if it is support that is coming from the state, from the country, from federal level, or local level, more women will be included into the labor market. And in the long run, we can see that actually the 20th century was the century of the radical increase of the women participation, and the 21st century was even more the increase of the women participation in the labor market all across different countries. And you can see that in the majority of the cases, in the majority of the reasons, you can see the increase of the women participation. But however, there is still a number of the countries when it is limited. And you can also see here, for example, that in the number of the developed countries, not only development, but developed countries like Canada, or for example, like United States. So this increase in women participation didn't simply fall. And this is a tricky thing because it's not growing. So usually the reasons of them could be not affected by simply will of women. And this is dramatical once more because the market is simply lacking the presence of the workers. Yeah, but nevertheless, it's growing. So in the number of countries, like more and more women are engaged into the production, and this is very positive effects. However, there is much stress in the traditional societies when the women are involuntarily excluded from the participation. So, what is the impact of unemployment? There could be a number of them. Basically, we can define like economic impacts, social impacts, but also political impacts. So in terms of the economy, definitely it's economic decline in the long run, and the less tax revenues that is coming to the state, then could be caused of the labor migration, increase of the economic inequality in the countries, then waste of resources that are present, but there is no labor force to work with them, then limits of the social development and limits of the human capital that is unable to gain new skills and to have the new vacancies, actually to have the new jobs access. It also can cause social tensions and alienations of different groups, social groups, then the decline of the public health. It also can cause the high level of protectionism in the country or in populism, and extreme regimes empowerment, because in the number of cases, at least in the 20th centuries, the extreme regimes, totalitarian regimes, were simply coming and were established during the tremendous growth of the unemployment rates. So the general question, is unemployment affecting economy? The short answer is yes, yes, definitely. And we can definitely see that there is a correlation between the unemployment and between the GDP growth of the country. So here you can see the some chart from the research article, and you can see that at least in 2008, when there was the tremendous fall because of the economic crisis, you can see that at the same time in the number of states there was tremendous development of the unemployment rate. So so they're really interconnected. And to actually to measure it in economy, there is such a system of measurement that is usually called the Kuhn's law. And this Kuhn's law is named after John Fitzgerald Kennedy economic advisor Arthur Kuhn, who developed this approach in the 60s, and then in the many of the years economists were trying to falsificate or to validate this principle, and to some of the major extent it's still working, however with some of the differences that are happening right now since the 60s. So what is the idea of the Kuhn's law? That there is the links in growth rate of output to changes in the unemployment rate. So, and this law describes the negative relation between the GDP and between the unemployment. There are different versions of this Kuhn law. That is rather a statistical issue. So one version of Kuhn's law stated that when unemployment falls by 1%, we have the growth of the gross national product, or GNP, by the 3%. And on the vice versa, another version of the Kuhn's law focused on the relations between unemployment and GDP, where the percentage increase in the 1% increase in the unemployment caused 2% of fall of GDP. So here we have like idea of the what is called the Kuhn coefficient. And this Kuhn coefficient can be calculated and developed for each of the countries or which of the industry. I just showed you one of the examples how it could be done. So it can show the gap between the actual GDP and the potential GDP that is divided by the potential GDP and is equal to this negative Kuhn coefficient. That is multiplied by the change in the employment. So, and if we go by the traditional Kuhn's law, of the 60s, yes, he was writing about America, definitely about the United States. So, and he showed that the Okun coefficient would be 2 in different kinds, in different industries. However, that's changed in the number of today's scenarios. This coefficient will not always be 2, and can vary according to the different economical situations. But why it is important? Because it can help in the policy making, especially if you're thinking about the fiscal policies and monetary policies, and can help to fight with unemployment, and then can help to do the GDP growth. Once more, the problem is with the Okun's law is that in the number of cases it is not working. So here, please notice that for example, during 2008 financial crisis, unfortunately, it was not working. And the problem is here that the sense is that the unemployment rate was actually growing, and the real GDP was not falling so much as it was considered to be. On the vice versa, the GDP was actually falling a little bit, but the unemployment rate was much more higher than it used to be in the classical Okun's law. And the story is that here that it's very natural for the policy making, because the economic growth is really connected with the investment, and we all know about this. And when people, they invest into business, and that means that the industry is boosting, so it's developing, and investment results is usually can increase the production levels, and that naturally requires labor force for the business, so we can see the growth in the employment rate. And a decrease in the unemployment eventually enhanced the GDP of the country. So here the Okun's law has its logic and its formula, and that is why many of the policymakers, they indeed create possibilities of the for the investment, for the growth of the markets, and then this means that the people will be included more and more. However, Okun's law will be a very good approach and guide to the monetary policy, how you create these investments, how we create these cycles, but the trick is that it could be done only when the unemployment rate is very professionally measured. And the major problem here is with this hidden unemployment that actually can trick you while thinking about the unemployment rate. Recently, there are also a number of different researches about the influence on unemployment on the health, or on the public health, on the mental health, and especially with COVID times, there are more and more in different countries the comparative studies in that sense. Just one of the articles in Spain, that you can see that the mental health the mental health data and the mental health problem occurred more systematically and more often, for example, in case of the unemployed people, than comparing to the same group of the employed people. And you can see here the percentage of the Spanish population. So it is also not only economical phenomena, but unemployment is also the social and public health phenomena. So it should be included. And actually, the unemployment could be one of the most serious social phenomena in terms of the social insecurity and the growth of the crimes.
So here there is one of the articles that is simply showing uh, the links of the shooting levels in schools with the increased unemployment. And in many countries, the situation is happening the same. So the unemployment rate is growing. There are more social tensions, more crimes that are also growing together with this rate. So you can see the exact social effect. And what is interesting, it also connected with populism or with protectionism. So protectionism is not always bad. It could be a good effect on the economy, but nevertheless, if you stuck into the country too much, and sometimes it can cause many troubles because your products and your workers are limited from the advantages of the competency in the global scale. In here, you can see one of the researches that you can read here. And actually, it's showing what was the tremendous change before the crisis, in Britain, before they voted for the exit from the EU. So this Brexit of voting. So you can see on this chart that when you have the decrease level of the unemployment that was happening in London, in England, so there were lesser people who were voting for Brexit. While on the contrary, when you have the increased number of the unemployment, the level of people who voted for Brexit was much more higher. And the problem here is once more because the misinterpretation of the nature, but also because sometimes populistic or radical parties can actually use unemployment as the huge informational construct to influence the people perception. So what can be done and what should be done in terms of the unemployment and policy making? So there are different, once more, approaches to that, but usually in terms of the unemployment, states are doing so-called support policies for the unemployed. And there are two major schemes. There is contributory scheme and non-contributory scheme. So the contributory schemes, they are usually, these are schemes that are happening in terms of the unemployment insurance that is basically collectively financed and that are caused by the, like to cover these unemployment risks. So these are finances, yes, that are financial contributions that are paid directly to people who lose their job, or that are shared between employers and employees. So the company could do this. They usually it could come from the taxations, so from the taxes, and in the many of countries, and especially in the, for example, Scandinavian countries, they have the higher level of taxes, but they are paying much more in terms of the people that lose their jobs. So what is non-contributory schemes? So these tend to be funded through the also through the general taxation. So but they are providing the minimum wage to support people in these vulnerable conditions. So it also could be cash transfers, it could be food, for example, it could be different fuel, for example, subsidies, it could be different in-kind, let's say, benefits. And the entitlement, let's say, of these schemes is not conditional on previous social security contributions. So it doesn't, in terms of the contributory schemes, it depends on you, how much you spent or you shared for the social security. But here, it doesn't depend, so this is really shared. It is based on the criteria of the citizenship. So if you're working in this country, you're a citizen of the country, so the country is responsible for you. So there are policies, both contributory or non-contributory, that are based on the costs, but usually these are about of the cost, even in terms, if in the sense of the non-contributory schemes, if you have some tickets for food, but this is mostly cost related. But on the other kind, there are different policies who can promote employability, or that are called the market activity policies. And here on this chart, you can see what else could be done than by directly financing, even in using the in-kind schemes. So different trainings, public works that also could be present, then subsidies, then different stimulus for the self-employment, and different labor market services that could be provided for people who are searching the jobs. So these are the most used schemes according to the International Labor Organization report of 2018. And usually in terms of the policy making, either you're using these financial schemes or financial support policies, or when you're using the schemes for promoting employability and market activities, yes, you should ask yourself as a policymaker a few questions. So what are the existing barriers in the decent work in the country that could be addressed by the combination of these schemes, of the income support and also by the actuation measures? Because it really depends on the conditions, because there is not the universal formula how you can track it. How important these are complementary, inherent in a combination of policies, as opposed to the merely simultaneous implementation of the separate policies. So how much you should use both, or you should like invest only into money, or like give the public job. So if a person leave, for example, the job opportunities, so you can provide like some of the public salaries that would be paid not by market but from taxes, public taxes. And what is the premise for believing that an effective combination of policies can achieve positive social and labor market outcomes? So how you can define it, how you can see that actually your policies were working greatly. And here you can see on this chart that actually together with this income support that should be present, definitely governments, state policies can take different strategies for different risks. For example, if you have, let's say, environmental shocks, environmental risks as the droughts or cyclones or floods, so it could be trainings that be provided for people to get new jobs, also employment subsidies, or also it could be some help in terms of the startups, or lowering the taxation rates, and so on and so forth. Or for example, in terms of the economic crisis, it could be employment subsidies to the companies that actually happened, for example, in the United States and many other countries during the COVID times, when the big industries like Walmart was financed by the country, by the government, to give employment subsidies so they can give a job for people who simply lost their job, natural job. Or once more, public works. So different strategies could be done together with just financing, just given the financial support. And what is interesting that on the International Labor Organization website, you can see they have this chart that is showing that the interconnection between the income support schemes and active labor market policies. So you can see that if you don't spend, so you spend zero GDP for the income support policies, you active labor market policies will not do a change at all. So they will not change unemployment rate, they will not change employability rate, and labor force will not be even interested too much to participate, to gain the job. While even if you spend 1.4% of the GDP for income support policies, for financial contributing or non-contributing schemes, you can see that active labor market policies in general, they will cause the decline of the employability by 1% and the increase of the employability of the employment in 1%. But also you can see that 0.6% of the labor force participation will be cost. So this is smart to invest money. And when you spend at least, if you are rich enough, and you spend at least 3% of the GDP to the income support policies, you can see that you dramatically shift the overall the situation in your country. You can cause the dramatic fall of the unemployment rate. You can also cause the change of the employment. And you can see that you can increase the labor force participation. So in terms you have the big percent of the unemployment in the country, it's smart to invest, but it's really hard to invest such costs. And on the contrary, if you invest into the active labor market policies, like in trainings, in such kind of the subsidies, in terms of, let's say, of these different approaches that are not only concentrated on direct finances, if you're not investing into them, you can see that employment rate will not be declining, it will be growing, and the employment rate will also decline, and once more people will not be interested to participate. So you can probably see the tendency of leaving the country. But 3% of the GDP that is spent on the active labor market policies, not directly costs, but for example, trainings, for example, investments into the public working, so creation of the public works, and so on and so forth. So it can cause the change in the employment. It will cause the decline of the unemployment. So if even with no direct money, you're doing this stimulus of the country. But yeah, if you're rich enough, it's much more better to finance, because this is the social economic issue, and social economic issues you usually manage through social and economic benefits. And here, by the in this report of the International Labour Organization, you can see by the different countries what is a percentage of GDP that is spent. You can see that the 3% or even 1% is just the dreaming. In the rich countries in North America or in Western Europe are not investing so much for this active labor market policies. But here is a difference, one of the big difference. So please notice, for example, North America, yes, and please see the Western Europe. So these countries are investing more into the labor market services and also into the trainings. And especially in North Africa and Arab states, you can see the same. While the developing countries, let's say like the Sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia, they are more investing into the employment subsidies or into the public works that are not present, for example, in North America. And relatively the amount is present, but it's not so big in the Western Europe. But here they are present because of the most social oriented, let's say, Western European or even Scandinavian countries. So they're using different approaches. While in generally, both in all the developed countries, labor market services and trainings are one of the most used ways to actually to cause the employment. And once more, we should take into account actually the possibility of the country that can finance either by costs or by the um, uh, but, or for example by the other schemes, by the market promotion scheme, availability of the market promotion schemes. So you can easily see that there are countries, for example, like Australia or Belgium or New Zealand. I was fascinated by that they can cover the maximum duration of unemployment benefits for more than 50 months. But actually people don't need it, because these red dots are showing that people don't need it. They're taking lesser this period of time. Then, for example, in Finland or in Spain or like in Sweden, yes, so they can afford them to pay even more, like up to 15 months, for example, in Sweden. However, the problem is in the developed countries, but for example, from the Eastern Europe. So here, in the cases of Slovakia and Hungary, you can see that the countries are not rich enough to pay a lot. So they are able to do this maximum, let's say up to the 5 months or up to the 10 months, while at the same period of time, the average unemployment duration is much more higher. And this is a tremendous problem, because it simply means that people can't get access, and with the financial only through financial issues you can't solve the situation, because you can't pay a lot in this type of the country. So that simply means that you should also invest into the these activity models like teaching, training, and the better your investment will be simply not letting unemployment rate to be extremely high. And in the terms of the changes, or the recent changes in the job markets, that simply means education, good education, and once more, good education and access. So decent work and economic growth and employability is also one of the Sustainable Development Goals. This is number 8, Sustainable Development Goals. So there is a strategy for UN lead efforts in the number of countries like to reach the good standards of the employability. But the recent report of the UN in 2020 simply showed the tremendous effects of the COVID in the field of the decent work. So we can see the fall in the number of the GDP growth in the number of countries, and also the you can also see the number of the job losses that are happening over the world. So more than 40 million of the jobs will be simply disappeared because of the COVID. And during these pandemics, there is a real risk of more than 1.6 billion of workers. There are a risk to lose livelihoods and to become homeless just because of the higher unemployment rates, and in different fields, like mainly in the tourism that was unpredictably and unprecedentedly facing like these challenges, but also in the other industries. So the real dilemma, the real challenge is how to boost that, because definitely you can see if without the unemployment, the GDP will fall. Without GDP, the unemployment rates will fall, and you will have much more serious social problems and political problems and political extremism that will be coming to the powers, just because people simply feel themselves insecure. So to do the follow-up, we really need to take into consideration the tremendous changes in the job market that is happening right now. So we have less working hours, we have more part-time jobs. However, the nature of this part-time could be really different. We can observe the technologization of work that is happening more and more, and more vacancies, more industries, they demand professional skills, not even high skills professionals, not even middle or low, but really high professional skills. There is also changes of skills of more analytical, more problem solving, more critical thinking, more strategical studies, more technologies in terms of skills are required for the new jobs, new markets, and there is a good prediction by the World Economic Forum until 2025 that they will be required. There are different, otherwise people will be cut from the possibility to take employment, and this will be also individual based because I just don't want, or because of the structural influence on the labor force. And there could be different causes of this unemployment, like economic recession, global competition, different policies, market competition, or state regulations, or new technologies and new robotization period that can steal people a job. Then there are different types of unemployment that should be taken into consideration for the policymakers: classical, cyclical, structural, frictional, or when hidden unemployment. And we can definitely see its impacts both on the individual level, but also on the economical level of the country, on the social level on the country, and on the political level on the country. So that is why states are usually combining the income support and active labor market. And we remember with you that there are differences in that. If you're rich enough, you can invest into the income support. However, you can invest a lot, up to 3% of the GDP, to do the real great things. And usually countries are combining this. And there is a big question. So what is the most working formula in the this or that society? So what about the formulas? We'll be doing this on the class. And now, thank you.